Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of an online classes. In last class, we discussed about introduction of microprocessor. So in this class, I'm going to explain about 8086 complete introduction. Okay, so in this class, you're going to learn about pin diagram, architecture, addressing modes, instruction, and assembler directives of 8086. Okay, so let us start our class. So first, this is a pin diagram of 8086 microprocessor. Okay, it is a 40 pin 8086 microprocessor. So I will discuss each and everything individually. So first let us see what is the signal description of 8086. So the 8086 is a 16-bit microprocessor, as we all know. This microprocessor operates in single processor or multiprocessor configuration to achieve a high performance. Okay. Some of the pins serve a particular function in minimum mode, that means a single processor mode, and others function in a maximum mode, that means a multi-purpose mode. Okay, so these 8086 signals are categorized into three types. Those are common signals for both the minimum mode and the maximum mode. And we have special signals which are meant only for the minimum mode and special signals which are meant only for the maximum mode. Okay, this pin diagram is categorized in three types. So first let us see the common signals for both minimum and maximum mode. So what are the common signals for minimum and maximum mode are? Those are here, as you can see, AD7 to AD0 and AD15 to AD8 are the common signals from both minimum and maximum mode signals. AD7 to AD0 are the address and data bus lines are that means are the multiplexed address and data bus. So they contain the rightmost 8-bit of memory address or data. Okay, so address and data bits are separated by using ALE signal. So next we have AD15 to AD8 signals. So these are also the address and data bus lines compose the upper multiplex of address or data bus. So these lines contain address bits of A15 to A8 or data bus of D15 to D8. Okay, so the address and data bits are separated by using ALE signal. And as you can see here, we also have A19. That means A19, which is S6, or A16, that is S3, which I mentioned in the 38th pin, which you can see here in the 38th pin, which is A16 to A16 S3. So this is an address status bits. Address or status bits are multiplexed to provide address signals from A19 to A16 and also status bits from S6 to S3. So the address bits are separated from the status bits using ALE signal. So the status bus S6 is always a logic 0 and bit S5 indicates the conducting of the interrupt flag bit. So here the S4 and S3 indicates which segment register is presently being used for memory to access. Okay, so this is some part of the signals which are used for both minimum and maximum mode. So next let us see about bus high enable, which is a S7 pin. Okay, this is also common for both minimum and maximum mode. This is a bus high enable pin, which is used to indicate the transfer of data over the higher order. That means D15 to D8 of data buses. Uh, it goes low for data transfer over D15 to D8 and is used to derive chip select of odd address memory bank or peripherals. Okay, next we have a read. So whenever the read signal is at logic 0, the data bus receives the data from the memory or input and output devices connected to the system. So when this is ready is the acknowledgement from the slow devices or memory that they have to completed the data transfer operation. So the signal is active high when the read signal and the ready signal are actively high. Okay, next we have an interrupt request. So this is also called as an INTR, which is an interrupt request. So this interrupt request is used to request a handware of interrupt is held high. Okay, so when interrupt enable flag is set, the 8086 enters an interrupt acknowledgement cycle after the current instruction has completed its execution. Okay, next we have a test. This input is tested by wait instruction. So if the test input goes slow, execution will continue, else the process remains in an idle state. Okay, next we have an NMI, that is nothing but a non-maskable interrupt. So this NMI input is similar to in, interrupt request pin. So except that the NMI interrupt does not check for the interrupt enable flag is at a logic 1. Okay. So next we have a reset pin. So this reset input causes the microprocessor to reset itself. So when 8086 reset, it restarts the execution from the memory location. Okay. So the reset signal is active high and must be active for at least 4 clock cycles. So next we have a clock pin. So this clock input signals provides the basic timing input signal for processor and bus control operation. It is a symmetric square wave. Okay, so next we have a VCC, power supply for the operation of an internal circuit. Okay, for next ground for the internal circuit. Next, we have a minimum and a maximum mode signals. So these minimum and maximum mode signals to select the mode of operation either in a minimum mode or the maximum mode configuration. So these are the pins common for both minimum and maximum mode signals. So now let us see about minimum mode signals of 8086. Only the minimum mode signals which operated on 8086. So here these are the signals of a minimum mode of 8086. So first let us see about memory input signal. So this memory input signal selects either memory operation or input and output operation. So this line indicates that the microprocessor address bus contains either a memory address or an input and output port address. Okay, signal high at this pin indicates a memory operation. This line is a logically equivalent to S2 in the minimum mode. Sorry, in the maximum mode. So next we have an interrupt acknowledge. So this interrupt acknowledge signal is responsible to INTR input signal. So this interrupt signal, this interrupt acknowledgement signal is normally used to get the interrupt vector number onto the data bus in response to an interrupt request. Okay, next we have an address latch enable. So this output signal indicates the availability of valid address on the address or data bus and is connected to the latch enable input of latches. Okay, so next we have a data transmit or a receiver pin. So this input signal is used to decide the direction of data flow through the bidirectional buffer. So if dt by r, that means data transmit by receiver is indicates 1, that means that means it is transmitting, and if dt by r indicates 0, that means it is receiving the data. Okay, next we have a data enable pin. So here the data bus enable signal indicates the availability of valid data over the address or data lines. Okay, next we have a write pin. So whenever the write signal is at logic 0, the data bus transmit the data to the memory or input and output devices connected to the system. Okay, next we have a hold pin. So this hold pin input request a direct memory access. Okay, so that means a DMA. So it is a direct memory access. If a hold signal is at logic 1, the microprocessor stops its normal execution and places its address, data and control bus at high impedance state. Okay. So next we have a hold acknowledgement. So this hold acknowledgement pin indicates that 8086 has entered into the hold state. So these are the pins for the minimum mode signals. So now let us see the maximum mode signals of 8086. So we have status lines. Those are S2, S1, S0. These three are the status lines. So these reflects the type of operation being carried out by the processor. So these status lines are encoded by some of the following instructions, which means when S2, S1, S0 are both are zeros, that means it is an interrupt acknowledgement. Okay, so likewise, there are some of the instructions for this status lines. Okay, next we have a clock signal. Okay, so this clock pin means the clock output is used to lock the peripherals of the system. That means the other system bus matrix will be prevented from gaining the system bus. Okay, So here QS1 and QS0, that means a Q states. So this the Q state bit shows the status and what means the internal instruction of the queuing. So the encoding of these signals are also have some functions related to the status lines. Okay, next we have a request and a grant pins. So what this request and grant pins are does what? These pins are used by other local bus masters to force the process of release the local bus at the end of the processor current bus cycle. Okay, so these lines are bidirectional and used for both request and grant operation. Okay, so these have a higher priority. That means request pins have a higher priority than grant pins. Okay. So these are the maximum mode signals of 8086. So next let us see about the architecture of 8086. So this is the complete architecture diagram of 8086. So it is a 40 pin microprocessor, as we know. So these 40 pins is divided into two categories of an architect in an architecture, which is bus interface unit and an execution unit. As you can see, the first part is the bus interface unit and the second part is an execution unit, and we have a memory interface above the bus interface unit. Okay, so let us see the first part first. That means a BIU unit first. So what does this BIU unit does what? This BIU fetches the data from memory and send it to the execution unit. So okay, so after the execution is done, the execution unit sends the information back to this BIU. Then it writes the data and send it to the memory and ports. Okay, so in BIU unit, there are three functional parts. In bus interface unit, there are three functional parts. Those are the instruction part, instruction pointer, segment register, and instruction queue. So these are the three main functional parts in bus interface unit. So first let us see about the instruction pointer. So this instruction pointer is a 16-bit register that keeps the address of memory location of coming instruction to be executed. Okay, so the segment register does what? The memory space in this segment register is 1 MB of 8086 into 4 blocks. Okay, so each block specified by the register with a maximum size of 64 KB. So these segment registers are nothing but we seen here which has these are ES, CS, SS, DS. These are the segment registers. That means ES means an extra segment, CS means code segment, SS means a stack segment, and DS means a data segment. These are the segment registers of 8086. Next, we have an instruction queue. So in this BIU, that means a bus interface unit performs its operation in parallel with an execution unit. Okay. So this is about the bus interface unit. So remember, in bus interface unit, there are three functional parts, which are instruction pointer, segment register, and instruction queue. And next we have an execution unit, which is EU. So what does this execution unit does what? To tell, it is used to tell bus interface unit where to fetch the instruction or data. Okay, so it has a two types. That means it decode the instruction or to execute the instruction. So this execution unit tells BIU to decode the instruction or to execute the instruction. This is the main function of this execution unit. So this execution unit consists as a functional parts. There are some functional parts in this execution unit, which are nothing but a general purpose registers, which is nothing but a GPRS, and the pointer and index register, ALUs, flags registers, and timing and control unit are comes in execution unit. So in let's see about the GPRS first. So in this general purpose register consists of four general purpose registers, which is a 16-bit, and each 16-bit is divided into two 8-bits. As you see here, AX, DX, CX, DX are four general purpose registers. So these four are in 16-bit. But in this we have an high high pin and also a low pin. So high pin indicates 8 bits and Low pin also indicates 8 bits. So total it combines a 16 bits. Okay, so we have a 4 general purpose registers. So next we have a point and index register. So here 8086 has a 2 pointers and 2 index registers. So the 2 pointers are nothing but a stack pointer and the base pointer, and index registers are source index and destination index. By I'm explaining, you can see the architecture of 8086 for the following things. Okay, so next we have an ALU. So this ALU is nothing but a 16-bit ALU. This is also 16-bit, and it performs 8-bit as well as a 16-bit also. That means which it can perform arithmetic and logical operations in 8-bit as well as in a 16-bit operations. So next we have a flag register. So this 8086 processor has a 16-bit flag register. That in this 16-bit, 9 flags are used flags and 7 flags are unused flags. Okay. So these 9 flags are also divided into 2 categories as I mentioned here. So one is a status flag and other is a control flag. We have a 6 status flags and 3 control flags. Okay, and the last 7 flags are unused flags. So what are the 6 status flags? The 6 status flags are nothing but a carry flag, auxiliary, auxiliary, zero, sign, parity, and overflow are the status flags. And coming to the control flag, direction, interrupt enable, and trap flag are a control flags. Okay, so everything is mentioned in this table, and there are 7 unused flags also. So total we have a 16-bit flag register here. So next we have a timing and okay, next we have a timing and control unit. So timing and control means what happens here is the control unit and the execution unit directs all intended operations, and also they are responsible for generating a control signals. Okay, this is about the architecture of 8086. Now let us see what are the addressing modes of 8086. So this 8086 addressing modes indicates a way of locating data or operands. So the addressing modes describes the types of operands and the way they are accessed for execution and instruction. Okay, according to the flow of instruction execution, the instruction may be categorized as a sequential control flow as well as a control transfer instruction. Okay, so first let us see about this sequential control flow. Let me explain what is the sequence control flow instruction was. So these are the instructions which after execution transfers control, the next instruction appear immediately after in the program. Okay, so for example, the arithmetic logic data transfers and process the control instructions are sequential control flow instruction. So so this sequential control flow instruction does what? It transfers the execution, it transfers the execution to the next instruction immediately. Okay, so this control, next one we have a control transfer instruction. So this control transfer instruction is to predefined address or the address some specified in the instruction. So after their execution is done. Okay, so after the execution done, this control transfer instruction is predefined the address. So let us see the addressing modes of the sequential control transfer instructions. So these are the addressing modes for the sequential control transfer. So first we have an immediate addressing modes. So what does this immediate means? In this type of addressing, immediate data is a part of instruction and appears in the form of a successive bytes to byte. Okay, successive byte to bytes. Okay, next we have a direct. In this direct addressing mode, a 16-bit memory address is directly specified in the instruction as a part of it. Okay, next we have a register. So in register addressing mode, the data stored in a register is referred using the particular register. So all the registers except IP may be used in this mode. Okay, next we have a register indirect. So sometimes the address of a memory location which contains data or operand is determined in an indirect way. So using offset register, this mode of addressing is also known as the register indirect mode. In this addressing mode, the offset addresses of data is in either DX or SI or DI register. Okay. So next we have an indexed register. So in this indexed addressing mode, offset of an operand is stored in one of the index register. So here DS and DS are default segments for index registers. So SI and DI respectively also. So this is a special case for the register indirect addressing modes. Okay. So next we have a register relative. So this register relative addressing mode is the data is available at an effective address formed by an addressing of an 8-bit or 16-bit displacement with the content at any one of the register. Okay. So next we have a based index. So this based index, the effective address of this data is formed in this addressing mode by adding a content of a base register to the content of an index register. Okay. So next we have a relative based index. So this relative based index address is formed by adding an 8-bit or 16-bit displacement with some of the contents of any one of the base register or and any one of the index register. Okay, so these are the addressing modes of sequential control transfer. So now let us see about the addressing modes of control transfer instructions. So these are the two types of addressing modes which we can see here. So each one has a direct and indirect. So now let us see about intra-segment direct mode. In inter-segment direct mode. So what does this thing does was, in this mode, the address to which the control is to be transferred in the same segment in which the control transfer instruction lies and appears directly in the instruction as an immediate displacement value. So next, intra-segment indirect mode. So in this mode, the displacement to which the control is to be transferred. So it is in the same segment in which the control transfer instruction lies, but it is passed to the instruction indirectly. Okay. So next we have an inter-segment direct mode. So in this mode, the address to which the control is to be transferred is in a different segment. So the addressing mode provides a means of branching from one code segment to another code segment. So next we have an inter-segment indirect. So in this mode, the address to which the control is to be transferred lies in a different segment and it is passed to the instruction indirectly. So these are the addressing modes of a control transfer instruction. So now let us see about the instruction description of 8086. So we have an 8 instructions here. So one is a data copy or a transfer instruction, arithmetic and logic instruction, shift and rotate instruction, loop instruction, branch instruction, string instruction, flag manipulation instruction, machine and control instruction. So first let us see about the data copy or a transfer instruction. So this instruction copies a word or a byte of a data from some source of a destination. Okay, so the destination can be registered or a memory location. So next we have arithmetic instructions. In arithmetic instructions, we have an add, subtraction, and arithmetic instructions are add and subtraction, or logical instructions are and, not, or so on. So what these arithmetic instructions of 8086 provides in arithmetic operations as well as in logical operations also. And next we have a shift and rotate instruction. So this instruction shifts each bit in specified destination to the left and 0 is stored in the least that means least significant position. So the most significant bit is shifted into the carry flag. So the destination can be a byte or a word. It can be a register or in a memory location. So next we have a loop instruction. So this instruction execute the part of a program from a label or address specified in the instruction up to the loop instruction number of times. Okay. So next we have a branch instruction. So a branch instruction stands for the flow of execution of the program to the new address specified in the instruction directly or indirectly. Okay, so branch has a two types, unconditional branch instruction and a conditional branch instruction. So unconditional branch instruction means the unconditional control transfer instructions, the execution control is transferred to the specific location independent of any status or condition. When condition branch instruction means when this instruction is executed, execution control is transferred to the address specified relatively to the particular instruction. Next we have string instruction, which means a series of data byte or word available in a memory at a consequent locations to be referred as a byte string or a word string. Okay, a string of characters may be located in a consecutive memory locations where each character may be represented by its equivalent. Okay, its equivalent. So the 8086 supports a set of string manipulations for referring to a string. Okay, so next we have a flag manipulation instruction. So these flag manipulation instructions directly modify some of the flags of 8086. Okay. So next we have a machine control instruction. So this machine control instruction controls the bus usage and execution. There are some instructions in this machine control, which means wait instruction, halt instruction, NOP instruction, escape instruction, and lock instruction. So each instruction in mission control are used for the bus usage and also the execution also. So next, these are the instructions of 8086, instruction description of 8086. Now let us see about assembler derivatives of 8086. So these are the assembler derivatives of 8086. So this assembler derivative helps the assembler correctly to understand the assemble language programs to prepare the codes. Okay, the operation performs the arithmetic and logic task. Unlike derivatives, just direct the assembler to correct the interrupt the program to code it appropriately. So here the derivatives are commonly used in the assembly language programming practice using Microsoft Assembler or Tuber Assembler. Okay, so so let us see these things. So first we have a define byte instruction. So this defined byte directive is used to reserve a byte or bytes of a memory locations in an available memory. So next we have a defined word derivative. So directive. So this defined word directive serves the same purpose as a DB directive, but defined by directive, but it now makes the assembler reserve the number of memory words, uh, that means a 16-bit words into a bytes. Okay, so next we have a defined quad word. So this directive is used to direct the assembler to reserve 4 words, that means 8 bytes of a memory for a specified variable and may initialize it with a specified values. Okay, so next we have a defined 10 bytes. So this DT directive directs the assembler to define the specified variable requiring 10 bytes for its storage and initializing the 10 bytes with the specified value. So the directive may be used in case of variable facing heavy numerical calculations. So generally processed by the numerical process. So next we have this assume directive. So this directive is used to inform the assembler the names of logical segment to be assumed for a different segments to used in the program. So next we have an end directive. So this end directive marks the end of the assembly language program. Okay. So next we have an end of procedure. Okay. So next we have an end of a procedure. I didn't mention here. So this end of a procedure in an assembly language programming is called a procedures. Okay. So the procedures may be independent program modules which return a particular results or values to the calling programs. So this end of a procedure directive is used to indicate the end of the procedure, to end the procedure. Okay. Next we have an end of segments. That means ends. So this directive marks the end of the logical segment. So the logical segments are assigned with the names using the assume directive. So the names appear with the ends directive as to mark the end of those particular segment. Okay. Next we have an event directive. So this event directive updates the location counter to the next event address. So if the current location counter connects to the that means the current location are not even, and assigns the following routines or variables or constant to that address. Okay, so this is about the assembler derivatives of 8086. I hope you understand this video. I will see you in my next class. Thank you.